is going to cover a concept that most of us have seen before, but it's not something that we really know how to work with yet, and that's percentages. Specifically in this video, we are going to try to convert between fractions, decimals, and percentages because as it turns out, these three things all represent the same number in different ways. So let's start looking at a few examples. Before we can do that, though, we need to know what a percent really means. And when we look at the word percent, I always look right here at the first part, and I split this up into two words, per cent. And what per cent means is per century. And a century has 100 years in it. Cents have 100 cents to a dollar, so percents mean per hundred or per hundredth, which is the fraction. If you bring this to me, you can get one piece of candy, because that's probably the most important thing that we're going to learn in this section. So if we're given the fraction, percent, or decimal, we can convert it into the others by remembering that percentage means per cent or per hundred. Therefore, 30% means 30 hundredths. That fraction. That fraction also means the decimal, 30 hundredths. Likewise, if we have 45% down here, that means 45 hundredths, or the decimal, 45 hundredths. And finally, 80% means 80 hundredths, or the decimal, 80 hundredths. So our goal for this lesson is to be able to convert between fractions, decimals, and percentages. But if you get a 98% on the test, what that means is if there were 100 problems, you would have gotten 98 of them correct. And that is always what percent means. So the question is, what if we start with fractions? Well, we know that percentages mean per century, so we need to convert this into tenths, hundredths, or thousandths, just like we did with decimals. Well, I know that there are 4 quarters in a dollar, so if I did 4 times 25, I get a denominator of 100. Likewise, if I do 3 times 25 to follow the same procedure, I will get 75 hundredths. Because once again, it's per cent, we now have the percentage 75%. Likewise, once we have the percentage, the decimal is the same idea. It's 75% or 75 hundredths. And usually, the percent and the decimal are going to be incredibly similar. And that is by design. Likewise, if we're given the fraction 3/5, we need to follow the same procedure. We need to get it into per century. So I know that I can turn this into tenths by multiplying the numerator and denominator by 2. Once I have it in tenths, I can multiply both the numbers by 10 to get 60 100ths, which is 60% or 60 hundredths as a decimal. Once again, the fraction, the decimal, and the percent should all match. Now, one of the difficulties is if we have fractions or decimals that don't give us exactly a hundredth. So for example, we know thirds are not exact from when we're working with ratios and decimals. We know that this gets about to 66/99ths, which is not exact. So what we do in this situation, if the percent is not exact, the strategy that I recommend, the strategy that I recommend is long division. And likewise, if you bring this to me, I will give you one piece of candy. Because you can always work with long division to convert this back into a decimal. So I have 2 divided by 3, so I have to write 2 divided by 3. And because our answer is not going to be exact, I'm going to add some zeros, and I'm going to do my long division, which I'm going to pause for you because you've seen this before. Notice here we ended up getting the decimal 6 repeating. And if we remember once again that percent means per century, what we do is we round to the hundredths column. So we look at the digit past and we ask ourselves, is this closer to 67% or 66%? Well, 6 thousandths is over halfway, so we are going to round up to 67%, and because it's not exact, we will round this to about 67%. We can do one more problem here on the side. If we have 3/7, same idea as before. This is not going to be exact, so our backup strategy is long division. So we are going to do 3, and we're going to add some zeros here, and we are going to divide by 7. So that's 4 groups of 7 for 28. 20 here gets us 2 groups, or 14. You get 6 in the background. You might be able to hear my wonderful wife texting, if that's the beeping that you're hearing. So I can do 8 groups here, which gives me 56. And this is going to continue on for a really long time. And since we're looking for percentages, we can stop at the second decimal place or one past it. So this is about 428 thousandths. So we are going to round to the hundredths column. Since 8 is over halfway, we are going to get 43% as our estimation, or about 43%. Let's do one more slide here. And the question is, can you have a percentage that's over 100%? And if you've ever had extra credit on a test or anything like that, you know that you absolutely can be over 100%. And in that type of problem, what we have right here is we have 140%, which I think of as 100% plus 40%. And 100% is the number 1. And 40% is 40 hundredths. So this should be bigger than the number 1. If we have 100% exactly, that is exactly 1, or 1 whole. If we write this as a fraction, we would get 1 and 40 hundredths. And we could simplify by dividing both of these by 5 to get 1 and 8 twentieths. Divide both of these by 2 to get 1 and 4 tenths. And finally, at the end of this process, we would get 1 and 2 fifths. I'm going to tell you right now, this whole page will definitely show up on a quiz, so I would absolutely be writing this down. Now, if we're given a decimal first, what I like to do is I like to change our tenths to hundredths, and we have 2 and 20 hundredths, and we know that 1 is 100%, so 2 should be 200%, should be double. So this is 200% and an extra 20%. So our percentage should be 220%. As a fraction, then we write this once again as a mixed number. We get 2 and 20 hundredths. I'm going to divide both of these by 10 to get 2 and 2 tenths. And divide both of these by 2 to get 2 and 1 fifth. And finally, the last one, what if we're given the improper fraction? Well, one group is 5 fifths. 2 groups would be 10 fifths. So the gap between 10 fifths and 13 fifths is 3 fifths. So I'm going to get 2 and 3 fifths. That changes into 2 and 6 tenths. Well, we know that 6 tenths is the same as 60 hundredths, and now we have the information we need. The decimal is 2 and 60 hundredths. The percent would be 260%.